A Rabbinic Anthology selected by C.G. Montefiore and H.Loewe. At the end of Herbert Lowe's introduction, I have appended the part that explains the abbreviations. Possibly, this is why Balaam may have been used as a designation of Jesus. On this, see T. Travers, Hereford, Christianity in Talmud and Midrash, London, 1903, page 63. Deal with the Balaam Jesus passages, but Becker, in his review, JQR OS, volume 17, 1905, page 171, does not always agree with Hereford's identification, and I believe that Hereford has, at least in some instances, accepted Becker's view that Balaam does not invariably refer to Jesus. The odd mixture is observable. The particularist doctrine of the rabbis was that the heathen nations could not be saved, well, if they were polytheists or not following God. They were doomed to hell, yet sometimes the heart of the rabbis smote them for this cruel doctrine, even as the heart of some Christian theologians smote them for a similar teaching. For if the heathen knew no better, and had never heard of the one true God, how could their doom be justified? See the Roman Catholic doctrine of invincible ignorance. Hence, the theory of the 7 prophets who warned them, but these prophets had ceased long ago. What then? Well, then came the law which arranged for the reception of proselytes. Ever since the nations could become Jews if they chose, the proselytes of each generation are a warning to all their contemporaries. The warning is unheeded. Therefore, the doom of hell is justified. 1604, Ecclesiastes R. 1, Section 8, 4, on 1.8, Section 4a, a woman came to R. Eliezer and said to him, "Bring me near," i.e., accept me as a proselyte. He said to her, "Specify your deeds." She said, "My youngest son's father was my eldest son." He rebuked her. She went to R. Joshua, and he received her. His disciples said, R. Eliezer drove her away, and you draw her near. He said, when she made up her mind to become a proselyte, she was no longer of this world. As it is said, all who come to it, i.e. to the true faith, shall not return, i.e. to sin. Proverbs 2:19. Ecclesiastes R. 1 Section 8, 4 on 1.8, 4a, 1605, Pass R. 161a, and many nations shall be joined to the Lord on that day. Zechariah 2:2. Lord is a stand-in for God as a verb and noun, established, increasing existence. R. Chanina B. Papa said, this verse refers to the day when God will judge all the nations in the time to come. Then will he bring forward all the proselytes in this age and judge the nations in their presence, and say to them, why have you left me to serve idols in which there is no reality? The nations will reply, Sovereign of the universe, had we come to thy door, thou wouldst not have received us. God will say to them, let the proselytes from you come and testify against you. At once will God bring forward all the proselytes who will judge the nations, and say to them, why did you abandon God and serve idols that are unreal? Was not Jethro a priest of idols? And when he came to God's door, did not God receive him? And were we not idolaters? And when we came to God's door, did God not receive us at once? All the wicked will be abashed at the answer of the proselytes, and God will judge them, and they will depart from the world. As it is said, they are altogether brutish and foolish. The instruction of idols, it is but a stock RV, Jeremiah 10:8, Pes R 161a. 1606, Tunch B, Yitro 35a. Solomon said, I saw the wicked buried, and they came. Ecclesiastes 8:10. How can the wicked who are buried come? The wicked, generally speaking, are buried while they live by reason of sin, and therefore do not come. But the wicked who are buried and do come are the proselytes, whose wickedness is buried, and who come and repent and go to and fro from the holy place, Ecclesiastes 8:10, from the synagogues and houses of study, and they are forgotten in the city. Same source, i.e. their evil deeds are forgotten. Tunch B, Yitro 35a, 1607, TJ Qed 4, section 1, folio 65b, line 55, Yem 24b, and more 1, 337, 348. They who desire to become proselytes from love of a Jewess or of a Jew are not received, nor are would-be proselytes from fear or because of worldly advantage received. Because then they're not actually proselytes. But Rab said, they are to be received. This is the halakha, i.e. the established rule. If they're outwardly, of a faith, they are to be considered as proselytes. They are not to be repelled as would-be proselytes are repelled at the outset to test their sincerity, and they must have friendly treatment. For perhaps, after all, they have become proselytes in purity of motive. TJ Qed 4, section 1, folio 65b, line 55, Yem 24b, and more 1, 337, 348, 1608. After the return of the spies, there arose contention between Israel and the Gerim. God said to Moses, wherefore do the Israelites contend with the proselytes? Moses said to God, Lord, thou alone knowest. God replied, did I not say one statute, one Torah for Israel and for Gerim alike? Hence, they say there are 3 types of proselytes, some like Abraham, some like Hamor, son of Shechem, some like a pagan in every respect. Now, what's our word for pagan? Because pagan, heathen, and all that, it's not appropriate to call people of a different religion that, just because they're of a different religion. How is this? The last named is the man in whose house is flesh of animals found dead, or killed by wild beasts, or creeping things, or other abominations. And he thinks, if I become a proselyte, I should eat good food, as the Jews do, and the nasty food would cease in my house. And the Jews, moreover, have Sabbaths and festivals. I will prevail upon myself and become a proselyte. And then he relapses to his original leaven. Yet in the end, sufferings come upon him for his good, and to deliver him from the evil he has wrought. And God says, just as he loved you, so do you love him. And then there is the proselyte like Hamor, who wants to marry a Jewess, and they say to him, you cannot marry her unless you become a proselyte. Then he prevails upon himself and becomes a proselyte. He too relapses, and he too is delivered by suffering. God says of him, my sons, just as he sought for rest among you, so do you grant him rest. For the proselyte shall you not oppress. Exodus 22:20. Finally, there is the proselyte like Abraham, who says, when can I become a proselyte and dwell beneath the wings of the Shekinah, as it is said, let not the son of the foreigner say, I am separated from God's people. Isaiah 56:4, 10 DBL, page 146. 1609, R. Samuel B. Nachmana said, in the name of R. Udon B. R. Chanina, 3 times it says, return, according to the 3 times that one must repel him who seeks to become a proselyte. But if he continues to press to be received, then they receive him. But R. Isaac said, quoting Job 31:32, the stranger proselyte did not lodge in the street, always repel with the left hand and draw near with the right. See selection 875, or, in order Ruth R. 2:16 on 112, folio 5a. The proof text is that Ruth 1, verse 12. And let us remember, one of the differences between Islam and Judaism is Islam doesn't believe that prophets that God calls to the people, the Rasulullah and Nabiullah, that's not a position for somebody who was a misassociator or a misbeliever, and certainly not someone who's going to apostate. So therefore, people are going to question, was this part of the tradition? Reasonably they could question, was this what they were doing or teaching before or after or during, right? There shouldn't be reasonable doubt in religion. You could say, well, yeah, in legal testimony for crimes or something, but not, there shouldn't be good reasons not to accept, right? Even in dark days, men were still found who desired to become Jews. The last passage about proselytes is important and famous. 1610, Geb 47a, 47b. The rabbis say, if anyone comes nowadays and desires to become a proselyte, they say to him, why do you want to become a proselyte? Do you not know that the Israelites, mujahideen in Arabic, nowadays are hurried, driven about, persecuted, and harassed, and that sufferings befall them? If he says, I know it, and I am not worthy, they receive him at once, and they explain to him some of the lighter and some of the heavier commandments, and they tell him the sins connected with the laws of gleaning the forgotten sheaf, the corner of the field, and the tithe for the poor. And they tell him the punishments for the transgressions of the commandments, and they say to him, know that up till now you could eat forbidden fat without being liable to the punishment of being cut off. Leviticus 7:23. You could violate the Sabbath without being liable to the punishment of death by stoning, but from now you will be liable. And even as they tell him of the punishments, they tell him also of the rewards. And they say to him, know that the world to come has been created only for the righteous. They do not, however, tell him too much or enter into too many details. If he assents to all, they circumcise him at once, and when he is healed, they baptize him. And 2 scholars stand by and tell him of some of the light and of some of the heavy laws. When he has been baptized, he is regarded in all respects as an Israelite. Geb 47a, 47b. Well, initially, you were just supposed to take the bath on your own. And 2 differences there. In the Islamic tradition, they trust you to go off by yourself and take a bath. They don't require you to undergo genital mutilation. Prophet Muhammad never taught it. And it's narrated that he wasn't of such. And there's far less death penalties. Treason equivalent to are murder, rape, child molestation, some might say torture. And as far as totally supported stuff, that's as far as you go, or the treason that leads towards that. So there's not all these death penalties. When you want to talk about death penalties, that's one that the Judeo-Christian tradition actually has. Of course, the Christians don't practice the Sabbath, but it will be noted that the commands selected as illustrations are mainly agricultural, and that these precede even the Sabbath. From this emphasis, one is inclined to assign an early date to the material contained in this passage. See note 18. Without looking at them all, I think those are all going to be individual programs. And H.Loewe's note, for the defiant or arrogant proselyte who seeks to impose conditions on which he will accept Judaism, see 422 and 1585 to 1586. For sincere proselytes, admission was facilitated, as the famous story of Hillel in 458 shows, and H.L.'s note.